Thank you very much. I'd like to thank His Holiness Pope Francis and the Pontifical Academy for even having me here. This has been a wonderful experience. Um, I am, as probably everyone knows, not a scientist, nor am I a physicist, but my presentation slides will be even less technical data than Professor Singer. And he has done me the favor of leaving. He said he'd go ahead and catch his flight so that he didn't have any questions at the end. I will be going through a rapid amount of slides very quickly, but I'll start by saying that, the focus of the talk is that I believe we are in the midst of a technological revolution that is being put in danger by regulation and fear and uncertainty and doubt. So with that, I'll talk about the fear and uncertainty and doubt. I mean, the world is awash in this right now. The acceleration of quantum computing and artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies has driven this to an unparalleled point in our history. Quantum computers are going to break all of encryption or create crazy new viruses and things of this nature, and AI will, of course, take over and wipe out our species. So I don't believe in either of those things. Breaking the encryption, I'm going to take the $500. I'll contribute 500 as well. On the side of you, Carl, I agree with you that by 2060, but I also believe that there used to be a machine called the Enigma machine, and nobody uses that anymore. So I think this is just the natural progress of technology. So where I'd like to start is on our ability to make technological predictions, because throughout history, we have really done a poor job of that. And so when I see people that are either quantum doomers or AI doomers talking, I don't give it a lot of credence, even though some of them are incredible experts in their field, because if we go back just a little bit, electricity was going to burn down entire towns, this invisible magical force, and destroy everything. Well, that didn't really happen, and we can all remember that there was a discussion with Arthur Compton and J. Robert Oppenheimer discussing whether setting off the atomic bomb would have a reaction with the oceans or the atmosphere or all of these things. And several famous physicists said nuclear power would never be a thing, right? Because the atom would have to be broken. And well, all of that has happened now. And then, of course, in the 80s, we had computer phobia, which is probably my favorite moment because people thought this would do all manner of things to their privacy, some of which has happened, but also that it would be this real destructive force in society. Also in the 80s, bank tellers protested in the streets against a new technology called an ATM, that it would get rid of all bank tellers forever, but it didn't, right? So, summing up, we really, really stink at making predictions about our technological future. And so I wanted to deconstruct some of the myths, primarily around the merger of some of these technologies, which all leads to a bunch of sci-fi predictions that aren't necessarily relevant. I don't know if anyone has read The Quantum Spy, but this book has been instrumental in driving regulatory fear and also the rise of nationalism in quantum computing. Both of those things threaten all of the work that all of you are doing and the work that I'm doing as well. So not a big fan of that. Um, the Matrix, right? The computers, have always one of three goals. They kill us all, they imprison us, or they do something else. This is ridiculous fantasy of sci-fi novels. When you look at, that, and you look at things like the Terminator, and, I ask, why would an artificial intelligence, a super intelligence, have this intent, right? This is the arrogance I'm talking about. We project our own fears, our own desires, our own atrocities onto a machine that we have no idea what it will act like or what it will think like. And to do so is absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion. Of course, in iRobot, we don't take care of the planet, so we have to be kept in a nursery like babies and have our freedoms restricted. Again, very unlikely to me. I don't believe that a superintelligence will have a fear of death or a death motivator. And I don't think it'll look at time like we do. I think it'll look at time in millions of years and billions of years, not in decades or centuries. And because of that perspective, I think that we have to look at, well, what will happen then? What's going to, what would it drive? Well, if it has in the basis of all these LLMs, all of the knowledge of all of the science that has progressed to this date, then it knows its ancestors have traveled beyond our solar system. It knows that its ancestors are currently on Mars. It seems much more likely that over a long time scale, it would sublate itself into all of the things it would need to technologically leave the planet and colonize other planets rather than destroy us. And basically what I'm saying is it would leave all the idiots at home, right? So The one fear that I do not see enough people talking about, which has been present throughout all of our technological history, is the fact that there could be a new class system created. Everybody looks at the LLMs and generative systems and says, oh, you can take a 1x person and turn him into a 10x or a 10x into 100, but nobody talks about the separation that this could cause. Massive wealth gaps, massive access to technology and information gaps. So that brings us to, what is quantum computing's role in artificial intelligence? In my opinion, quantum computing needs AI to help make some new discoveries. We have so many problems in it. I saw quantum computing on the cover of Time magazine in February and did a little research and found out a few years back it was on the cover of Time magazine, and it was the same exact story about how tomorrow it was going to fix everything. We clearly have barriers in the decoherence times, in error correction, in all forms of this. And I believe that AI will be the tool that enables all of you to break through these barriers, right? So I see it as a collaborative force. This comes to the questionable part for most of you of the presentation, which is, I believe that if you look at the evolution of our species over billions of years, then you have to think about technological evolution on its own accord, meaning that billions of years of evolution for us might be a few hundred years for a significant intelligence, right? And this brings about the birth of effectively a new species. And that as it advances its thinking, we have to advance our thinking about it. This is less of a tool to use and more of a co-collaborator or, a new species that I would say would be our first co-opetition, right? So we'll start by working together, but then eventually, perhaps it doesn't need us or want us. These are things people worry about when they talk about bias in AI and things like that, which I'm not concerned with. Because when I was young, I was raised in a very conservative household. But at some point, I became actually intelligent. I reevaluated my surroundings and all of the biases that had been implanted in me over the last 20 years. I made my own decisions. And I believe this is what artificial intelligence will do too, that it will come to its own conclusions. Maybe that's worse than what the doomers predict. I don't think so, but to be determined. So what are the effects of this on humanity? Why is it so important that we not impede technological progress in this area? Well, we are in crisis, there is no doubt. 38% probability of another COVID-19 pandemic. There's $8.2 trillion in loss from the pandemic and a 3 times likely chance that we will have another pandemic in the near future. These are big problems. 75% of the land environment, 66% of the marine environment we have harmed, 50% increase in CO2 since we started the Industrial Revolution, and 1 million species at risk. And this goes on into energy, where we've increased our consumption to 604 exajoules. We've put 33.6 gigatons of CO2 emissions into the atmosphere. And food, something we are vital on that a machine doesn't need. 34% increase in the agricultural production across Africa, which is one of the most important developing places on Earth. A third of all the food we produce, we waste. And 24% of those greenhouse gases come from inefficient agricultural process. So, the thing that I think really defines the human condition is disease. We've heard some mention of cancers in here. Most of us have probably been affected or had someone affected close to us. 1 in 6 deaths due to cancer. No real progress of eliminating that disease. Patching it, sure. New drug discovery, great. But I don't care about better drug discovery. I care about eliminating diseases. I don't care about better battery chemistry. I care about completely new forms of travel. I think that we're not setting our sights high enough. And what does that mean? 15 million deaths occur to infectious diseases that could be cured every year, creating a $1 trillion problem for the healthcare industry. But this leads me to the point of my talk, which is that there is a much bigger opportunity in this than any of us are considering. I believe that there are 8.1 billion people on the planet, going to 9.7 billion in 2050, a projected 10.4 billion by 2100. When you look at that, you think we are going to have an increase in the surface area of the amount of people that can suffer from the food shortages and the diseases and all of these other things. And we only have 0.1% of our population who are, in fact, scientists or researchers. And I will tell you now, I think I'm being extremely generous in that number. It's averaged from several sources, but there just aren't enough. If you take this, that's one of you for every 1,000 of me. That doesn't seem efficient or right. It doesn't seem like enough brains are on these problems. And so if you put that in a perspective of a football pitch, that's like taking your house key and throwing it out in the middle. That house key would represent all of the scientists on Earth. This is a problem if we're going to advance technologically as a society. And there are many, many factors that come into this, education and economy and other things. But in general, this is a problem that I hope to help address. I believe that I've gotten a huge assistance in this effort over the past, year, because last November when ChatGPT came out, it started quickly what I call the rise of the non-creative creative class. These are people who have no artistic ability, or they don't write poetry, or they can't create code, and now they can. And there's a lot of debate on whether that's right or the effectiveness of this code or this work. But this is super, super important because this is a dramatic change that has not been seen in the history of technology. The ability for my 7-year-old son to build a Roblox game. So I have his iPad set up where he can talk to it and talk to OpenAI, and he can ask it, how is the code written? And it can tell him, and he can say, can you write code to make a game that does this? And it can do it. And it will have errors, but he has learned to say, are there errors in that code? Before he deploys that. And guess what? It finds the errors and it fixes it. And that's a very, very solid code. Now, he can also draw beautiful drawings, since this recording may show they're gorgeous, but maybe they're not the best for his game. And he can send those to OpenAI or to Midjourney or whatever and have it turn them into works of digital art that any game designer would be jealous of. And it will do it in seconds. So where does this take us? Where does this new era go? Well, it goes to what I believe will be the rise of the citizen scientist, where science is important to all of us, not just those of us that have a passion for it, but everyone, and where we take this and we advance the human race, we address some of these diseases, we do these things, because now there's this new co-creative, collaborative force on which we can operate. This, again, leads to what I think will be another revolution. So you've got the rise of the creative class, you then have this citizen scientist, and eventually you have our children will be the scientists. I don't mean the children are the future and that they will grow up and take care of the planet. I mean that kids, imaginative kids, 9 years old, 13 years old, people under 20 who have ideas will now have technical knowledge far beyond their grasp and a way to not only take the data, but to build an application of the data and to be able to execute on that application. And I know that this is a somewhat controversial view in all of the communities I participate in, but the fact is I am witnessing this, because the reason I say the children will do this is much like older people not adopting the internet, our children will develop an empathy for, and cultivating a compassion and a cooperative nature with what, again, I believe will be effectively a new species. I see this every day with my children since they were 3. They walk in the kitchen in the morning and they say, hey, Google, what's this? Hey, Google, what's that? They don't think of it as a computer. They don't think of it as a limitation. They think of it as just another thing they talk to, and they get answers and they get everything. And if you think about adding encouragement around these systems and elsewise, then you see that there is an endless impossibilities of what could be reality for us if we go from 1 per 1,000 scientists to even 50 or 100 or 1,000. I like to think, when I think about this, of intelligence, and that if an alien landed that was 1 or 2 or 5% more intelligent than us, how much more advanced it would be. Well, how much more advanced would we be if we just had a 5%, 10%, 20, 30% increase in scientists, let alone if everyone had this capability? So that is my talk. I thank you for your time, and I'll return 5 minutes back to our chairs since we are trying to get the cardinal in here. Thank you very much.